Coming to you from South Florida, the Casey Ingram Show broadcasts from the heart of the Manatee Pocket, atop the Fish House District and a marina, Port Salerno's hidden gem. Now here's Casey Ingram, Unleashed.
See him in the shadows, Ingram calls the shots, speaking truth to power where the rebels lost. Voices rising, anger crackles through the air. Casey's being unleashed, raising hell without a care.
Ladies and gentlemen, when we elect our representatives, we don't ask for much. Just one tiny little thing: follow the Constitution. That's it. Not interpret it like some kind of magic eye puzzle, not twist it into a pretzel to fit an agenda. Just read the words and follow them. Is that too much to ask? Now today we have Representative Toby Overdorf joining us to give us a legislative update. You know, the usual mix of important policies and things we didn't know we needed laws for. But one bill in particular is bound to spark some debate: his proposal to reverse Florida's ban on bump stocks. Now, for those who aren't gun enthusiasts, a bump stock is an accessory that lets a semi-automatic rifle fire at a speed that mimics an automatic one. It doesn't turn it into a machine gun, but it does increase the rate of fire dramatically. The federal ban on bump stocks came after the Las Vegas mass shooting in 2017, where the shooter used them to fire into a concert crowd, killing 60 people. But Florida's state ban happened later, after the 2018 Parkland school shooting, as part of a larger gun control package. It was one of several measures passed in response to that tragedy, including raising the minimum age for buying guns and implementing red flag laws. Fast forward to June 2024, the Supreme Court reversed the federal bump stock ban, ruling it unconstitutional. Now the question is, should Florida follow suit and repeal its ban? I recently did a local poll, and most folks prefer to keep the ban. And here's the kicker: even many gun owners agree. They say bump stocks are unreliable, gimmicky, and an unnecessary way to mimic an automatic weapon, which is already heavily restricted under the National Firearms Act. So here's the bigger question: where do we draw the line? If bump stocks should be legal under the Second Amendment, then what about red flag laws? Because if we're defending gun rights, shouldn't we also be questioning laws that allow the government to confiscate firearms based on a suspicion alone without due process? I had a guest on this show not long ago who told a story about how a Virginia elected official allegedly abused a red flag law to target him personally. That's not about safety, that's about power. And what about the age to purchase a weapon? Young men are required to sign up for the military draft at the age of 18, are sent into battle at the age of 18, and yet Florida prohibits anyone from purchasing a gun unless they are 21. And let's not forget our new administration in Washington claims they're draining the swamp, cutting unnecessary regulations, getting rid of bureaucrats with personal agendas. But what's more wasteful than enacting laws that don't hold up in court? The bump stock ban got struck down at the federal level, yet some states are holding on to it. Meanwhile, we have laws like red flag that are so broad they invite government overreach. It's like playing whack-a-mole with our rights. So what's the solution? Well, first, let's be honest about what's constitutional and what's just political theater. If we support the Second Amendment, then let's be consistent. If we're banning certain accessories, let's make sure we're not contradicting ourselves with laws that allow arbitrary gun confiscation. At the end of the day, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, a Libertarian, or just a guy who likes arguing at the bar. The Constitution is the rule book, and I, for one, expect my representatives to read and follow it. Today, we're speaking with Representative Overdorf, who's calling in from Tallahassee, and he will break this all down for us. So for those of you that don't know, Toby Overdorf is a Republican member of the Florida House of Representatives, serving District 85, which encompasses parts of Martin and St. Lucie counties. Born in Rhode Island, Overdorf relocated to Florida in '92 and now resides in Palm City with his wife, Maggie. Overdorf holds a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Union College, a Master of Science in Biology from Florida Atlantic University, and a Master of Business Administration in Environmental Studies from FAU. Before entering politics, he worked as a marine scientist in Big Pine Key and later founded Crossroads Environmental, which he merged with Engineering Design and Construction Incorporated. Elected to the Florida House in 2018 and subsequently reelected, Overdorf has been involved in legislation concerning human trafficking, shark finning, and teacher salaries. In 23, he was appointed to the statewide Council on Human Trafficking following his tenure on the Florida Alliance to End Human Trafficking since 2020. All right, Representative Overdorf, thank you so much for joining us from Tallahassee. Lots of things to talk about today. Of course, I led off with the bump stock legislation. So that's a bill you've introduced. I did do a short poll here, and generally people opposed legalizing it. Facebook was actually very close, 45 to 55%. Nextdoor was 73% wanted to ban. So tell us, why did you introduce this legislation, and what kind of feedback are you getting in Tallahassee?
Well, certainly. First of all, thank you for having me. And it's a great way to kick off your new show on Rumble. Congratulations on getting out there and being a part of that. I can't thank you enough for allowing me to be be your first guest on this new platform.
Couldn't think of anybody better.
I know well, thank you so much. I know it's worked well for many folks out there. Rumble is certainly an emerging powerhouse in this type of platform, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of it. I've had a lot of conversations over the years with a variety of individuals that are part of either the NRA or that are Second Amendment supporters, and myself being a very strong Second Amendment supporter, with some of those conversations get very involved. One such individual is a local gunsmith and gun shop owner, and he brought to my attention the bump stock ban within the state of Florida. Currently across the United States, there are only 16 states that actually have a bump stock ban, one of them being Florida, and the others being traditionally and currently very blue states that we've seen out there. And these other states also have a variety of other gun control measures and very strong gun control measures in their states. That aside, when looking at the Supreme Court ruling, our largest, our most extreme court in the entire country, here's a ruling from them, a 6-3 ruling, not a split decision, but a very strong 6-3 ruling that said what the federal government did was not constitutional. And so I look at this, and this is the landmark of where we're supposed to be for our constitutional side of the United States, and Florida is now against that constitutional rule. That is really what has driven me towards filing this repealer legislation, and it just repeals a section within the state Florida code and no longer makes it a felony to actually possess a bump stock or to use that as part of your everyday use at the range and or how you would like to do that recreationally. Additionally, there's another part on this legislation. In this particular area in the Florida Administrative Code, it also says that if you were to modify a trigger in any way that would potentially allow for that gun to fire in a more expeditious manner, that you could also face a felony. And this is another part of this Florida Administrative Code that is really it's really buried in this bump stock issue. So what that means is, if a gunsmith, if your trigger was broken or something along those lines, and your gunsmith decided to replace your pistol, instead of having, say, a 9-pound pressure on that pistol, it now had a 7-pound pressure on that pistol. And frankly, myself or you, Casey, we may not be able to notice that difference. However, by him making that action, that gunsmith is now facing a felony because he modified that gun to now fire at less of a pressure and therefore potentially could fire faster than previously. As a result, they would again face that felony. I felt also that was not an appropriate use of Florida Administrative Code and putting all these gunsmiths in danger. My wife prefers a less of a poundage on the trigger, and so if I was ever to modify any of our handguns under this current legislation, we would face a felony as a result. So those are some of the reasons that we decided to move ahead with this legislation that would just repeal that section of the Florida Administrative Code.
So moving further in, I mentioned it in my monologue, but the red flag laws that allows courts to temporarily remove firearms from individuals deemed to danger themselves or others. It's usually based on petitions from law enforcement or family concerns. What are your thoughts on Florida's current red flag laws, and do you support keeping them or repealing or modifying them?
I support modifying them, most definitely. I think there are some situations where when an individual, through due process has in fact found to be mentally unstable or is in a situation where again, through due process, they present a danger to themselves or others. In that time there, I think it is an appropriate use of a police force to remove weapons from that individual. But again, it cannot be through anything but due process, and I do support modifying the rules as they currently exist within the state of Florida.
Do you see that any bills might be filed to modify our red flag laws currently in Florida? I know there was some that was proposed. I think they've been withdrawn. Do you foresee anything coming up this session?
It's very possible. We're currently only at in the 600s for bills currently. What I mean by that, they're numbered. All the bills are, and we have around 400 or 500 bills that have actually been filed at this point in time. Our bill filing deadline is the end of next week. I would expect that we're going to have literally well over 1,000 bills that will be filed between now and then. And it's too early for me to say that there will or will not be. I have not heard of a specific representative saying that they will or will not file a repealer on the red flag laws or a modification. So at this point, I wish I could say, yep, we're definitely doing it or we're modifying it, but I have not heard of anybody at this point.
Do you have any appetite to do it yourself? File a bill yourself?
I don't have any bill slots to be able to do that. So in the Florida House, we have 7 bill slots that we're allowed to have bills for. And then we also have 1 repealer that we're allowed to file. I use my repealer on the bump stock ban. And then I have 7 bill slots that are being utilized for a variety of things. So I will not be able to file that this year. As a senator, they are unlimited in the amount of bills that they file. So I wouldn't be surprised if Senator Martin, who is a very strong Second Amendment senator across the rotunda here, wouldn't be surprised if he has a gun bill or 2, and he is going to be my partner on the gun stock ban.
Fantastic. Do you believe Florida should move forward or toward a full constitutional carry, permitless open carry, or is the current permitless concealed carry law sufficient?
So at this point in time, I don't think that there's an appetite within the legislature to go ahead with open carry. I've been around open carry in many of our states, and you look in Texas where there's open carry there, and we've seen crime rates go down. You've seen gun violence go down in those areas. I would certainly support an open carry if it did come out there. I'm not sure that the state of Florida, as a body here in the legislature, is ready to have open carry. So I'm only one of 120 in making these decisions. And so at this point in time, I don't think that's something that we'll see come forward in the legislature this year. But I do know both the governor, myself, and others within the legislature would support open carry.
Last gun topic. Senate Bill 94 was filed by Senator Randy Fine, repeals the sale or transfer of firearms to persons under 21 years of age and returns it to age 18. Would you support that bill?
100%, absolutely. Look, we ask our young men and our young women at 18 years old to go off and fight wars. We have them register to vote. If they commit a crime, they can be tried as an adult at 18. We're asking them to vote at 18. There's so many things at 18 that we ask these individuals to do. They should be allowed to purchase a weapon at 18 if they choose to. Frankly, I'm a person that believes that everything should be either at 18 or at 21, but don't go back and forth and make this mismatch. You can have debates all day long about maturity, about this, whatever else, but in the eyes of the law, that individual is an adult at 18. And until that's changed, I would suggest that everything should be at 18. By the way, that does also include purchasing alcohol and doing other things like that. Should all be at 18, in my opinion. But that being said, that's apparently not where we are as a state.
Very good. I want to step back just 1 second, a couple of things. You were in Washington, D.C. during the presidential inauguration. Can you just share with the viewers what the sentiment was like up there? It looked so much energy, and unfortunately with the weather, a lot of the events were downsized so they could be moved inside. But tell us a little bit about your experience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. The energy was just amazing to be up there with President Trump. My wife and I were there for the very first inauguration of President Trump. and had that outdoor experience, had that time with him. We were 100 yards or so away from the platform where he was sworn in. Then the second time, we were actually with Congressman Mast, and we were in his in his conference room as he was being sworn in, the president that is. And it was an amazing experience just to be in the Capitol, of course, at that time as well. So I'm grateful for, number one, for that partnership with Brian Mast and his congressional office, but also just to be a part of that. And then going through D.C., the energy was, just so amazing. The excitement of what was going to happen, the ability to now take such a deep breath and be like, oh my gosh, finally, after 4 years, here we go, and we're able to take off, and the chains are off, the gloves are off. We're really going to be able to get to prosperity. And here we are, roughly 20 some odd days later, and this man has, just energized our country. The things that we're going through right now are things that he has promised, that he is delivering on. And there's not been a tremendous amount of legislative action, but the executive branch has absolutely taken off. And I think there's a feeling, not only in this country, but worldwide, that really the USA is back. And our strength is there. I think our military partners are feeling just empowered again. And there's a difference between being empowered and feeling that confidence and being egotistical, if you will. And I think I see that in a lot of, and speaking with my friends in the military right now, they're excited. They're excited to have a commander-in-chief that they know is going to be standing with them. They're excited that they have an administration that knows is going to stand with them. And I got to tell you, having Marco Rubio, who's one of the smartest men that I've ever known, going around the world right now and really presenting the strength of the United States is absolutely unbelievable.
Exciting times for Florida, right? We have a lot of representation.
Well, and what's also amazing, as you know, and as you just alluded to, the amount of individuals from the state of Florida that are now within President Trump's administration and or contributing to President Trump's administration. It is absolutely humbling to see that across the board. And frankly, we've got a deep bench. We have a lot of individuals here in the state of Florida that are really going to be doing great things coming up. And whether that is, again, a guy like former Congressman Waltz or, Congressman Mast, or we're looking at Congressman Donalds. All of these things. Congresswoman Kamek is just such a great advocate for all of this. And of course, I can't forget one of our statesmen, Vern Buchanan, who has really been a mentor to many of our younger congressmen and congresswomen as they've come through. Mario Diaz-Balart. This overall Florida delegation is absolutely incredible. You've got a new gentleman up in Jacksonville, Congressman Bean. If you've ever met Aaron Bean, you will never forget it. The man has a great personality, but has a great memory as well. Just a really good advocate for the state of Florida. I'm very excited about that. Of course, now we're going to get 2 new congressmen to replace some of our folks that have moved up. Most likely, and I don't expect that we're going to see any huge Democrat votes coming out, but I certainly believe that Randy Fine, as well as our current CFO, Jimmy Petronas, are going to be elected and serving in Washington. I'm excited to see their service up there, and again, a continued great Florida delegation. And then, it just keeps rolling, Casey, in that we look at the population that we're continuing to gain here in the state of Florida. We're literally gaining millions of dollars every single hour of reinvestment within the state of Florida here. And as a result, we're seeing our population increase. And so I would say we're probably going to gain 1, if not 2 additional congressional seats here coming up after the next the next review of the census. And so I think we're going to see even more of a overall Republican domination within the state of Florida, and therefore really branching out countrywide. And so I'm excited for the future, and so much of that has to do with our president, has to do with the energy that he's brought back to our country, our party, And I'm really, as we can't tell, I'm really excited about the future, not only of the state of Florida, but also our country. It's just, we have great conservative hotbeds too locally, like yourself, like Dan Bongino, who's now made Martin County his home. We have, just great folks that are local and that are bringing this from the inside out. So I just can't even tell you how excited I am about the future. Industry as well is really pouring into not only the state of Florida, whether it be through manufacturing jobs or just distribution centers. Our transportation is getting better. All across the board, we're seeing some real gains within the state of Florida. So I think that that is just, we're making the United States Florida, if you will, and really spreading that out across the entire country.
It's been exciting to see the president, once he was inaugurated, he came in with a plan, more than I have ever seen a president come in day one. So it's really been exciting to see all the changes. I could do a whole show on that, but I want to get back to what's happening here in Florida too. And I appreciate the insight. That's exciting for those of us that weren't in Washington, D.C. You could feel the excitement come through the TV screen now. You really could. People are just so excited that we're putting America back on track and bringing the greatness back, as President Trump would say. Swinging back here to Florida, it was a little bit of a tense start. He had a special session about immigration here in the state, and there seemed to be a real rub between, the legislators and the governor. So, but in the end, everybody came together and a new immigration bill was passed. So tell us a little bit about that process up there and what was going on.
Absolutely. So the behind the scenes on all of this is that, the Senate President and the Speaker of the House, Danny Perez, they had met with the governor about a week and a half prior to the president, actually about 2 weeks prior to the president becoming our 47th president. And in that meeting, they talked about a variety of things, including immigration, including a variety of constitutional amendments, things like that. And both the president as well as the speaker had made very promises to the governor that, yes, we're going to get these things done. We're going to start moving ahead. And as he stated in several different interviews, the next thing he knew, Speaker Perez was coming off of an airplane, and he had a phone message as soon as he landed, and it was the governor saying that, I'm calling a special session. And Danny looked and said, oh my gosh, it's going to be in 8 minutes. So he immediately called the governor, and the governor didn't pick up. And it was about a week and a half after that they finally spoke for the first time. I'm sorry, about 2.5 weeks after that they spoke for the first time. And so that special session in the minds of folks around here was also called prior to the time that our president was even in office and had signed any of the executive orders. So we felt that it was just a premature situation, and that we didn't want to overstep the president. We wanted to make sure that we were absolutely 100% supporting his agenda. We absolutely support his agenda on illegal immigration, but at the time we didn't know what it was. So we then went ahead, and once the president was in fact sworn in, about a week after that was when we had this special session called. And so we absolutely got into and digested every possible executive order, worked with the new administration and formulated the immigration bill that we had originally, brought that forward, and as you saw, it passed through both the House and the Senate in that special session. It wasn't until about a week after we had passed it that the governor and the Speaker of the House, as well as the Senate President, actually started to talk again and to work some things out. And there was a lot of angst, as you saw, between the legislative and the executive branch at that time. And it's okay, because really when you have disagreement between two branches, oftentimes you get a better product. And I believe what we ended up with, and the product that we ended up with, was a better product. It was passed by more Republicans than the previous time. It was something that I think we as the Republican Party all agreed on, and hopefully some of our Democrat partners will at some point get on board with us and see what we're doing in this state and supporting President Trump. So yes, there was a lot of angst back and forth there. But the conservative nature of the Florida House has not changed, and neither has the conservative nature of the Senate. And the governor did recognize that later in that week, and that week of angst, shall we say. He recognized that we are all conservatives. We are working hard towards this, and we did, in fact, in the end, pass a product that I believe is the most conservative immigration process in the entire country for any state. And there are other states now that are actually taking our legislation and are going to be putting it into their own states and utilizing that in support of President Trump's immigration policy.
It's a little bit of a checks and balances, and as you said, in the end, the best legislation came out of that. Can you go over the highlights of that legislation so folks understand what was passed? What's different from 2023, 2024?
Most certainly. Of course, we do have E-Verify here in the state of Florida already. I personally would support even stronger E-Verify. We have it for any company that has 25 employees or more. You have to go through the E-Verify process. I would support a stronger measure than that, have it as a lower number. But that being said, in this particular measure, we are supporting law enforcement by providing additional monies towards not only bed space and areas within our county and our state prison system as a holding facility for illegal immigrants that have been identified we're waiting for ICE to process them. We also have given additional training towards our local and our state law enforcement so that they are trained in the ICE practices, and they also have access to the databases that are associated with ICE. We also increase penalties for the immigrants that would commit crimes here in our state, and many times doubled those penalties. We have also increased rape charges to go towards the death penalty for illegal immigrants, and so these things are really protecting the citizens of not only the United States, but the citizens of Florida, and making sure that we're first protecting them. We also removed the scholarships and the free money for individuals that are not citizens within the state of Florida, and certainly allowed to go to school here if in fact they can provide documentation, but they will not be getting a scholarship to do that anymore.
I believe that was for colleges and universities. What about pre-K, K through 12?
The pre-K, K through 12 situation, again, we have to look at their citizenship situation, and that's more on a case-by-case review. I know that if my parents were illegal immigrants and they were facing a deportation, I would hope that my parents would do the right thing and would in fact immigrate back to there and keep the family unit together and come into the country the correct way. Now, one thing that both Republicans and Democrats agree on, and has come out of this bill process, is that we all agree that our immigration system as a whole is broken. And this is something that we absolutely need to get a hold of and find ways to allow people to come here legally in a better fashion. It should not take 10 or 15 years for a person to immigrate to this country and thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars with an immigration attorney as well. There should be a process that they can come into our country and follow that process and become a citizen. And I think that's something that we have to address under this administration. I do not support amnesty. So for those that have come here illegally, I think that we need to have them out of the country. But that being said, we also need to find ways that we can allow for individuals to come here legally and to become citizens of the U.S. And again, it shouldn't take 10 to 15 years.
Right. Another big issue for Floridians I wanted to touch with you on was home insurance. Since 2018, Florida homeowners have experienced significant increases in insurance premiums. Between 2018 and 2023, the average home insurance rates increased in Florida by approximately 43%. The surge is notably higher than the national average, which was an increase of about 33% during the same period. In 2023, the average annual premium for Florida homeowners reached $10,996, more than 4 times the national average of $2,377, according to newspress.com. With the rising housing insurance costs, what policies do you support to address the skyrocketing housing prices? I know this is something that you guys work on in every session.
Absolutely, and thank you for that question. It's a question I get almost on a daily basis from constituents back home, and it's something that we're absolutely working on. So what I can report is good news. There's actually an article, I believe today, an editorial in the Wall Street Journal comparing the state of Florida and the state of California. Now, besides being a deep red and a deep blue state, what we're also seeing is that State Farm is actually pulling out of California. In California, they dealt with the insurance crisis out there by saying, hey, insurance company, you can only charge X for anything out there. As a result, the insurance companies have said, well, look, we can't do business like this. And being a free country, they decided to take their business elsewhere. What did that do? It shot rates up for every other company, or many folks were out of insurance. We don't want that in the state of Florida here. I'm so glad that you kept bringing up 2023, because that's when we made some incredible and serious first time in 25 years that we made tort reforms here in the state of Florida. Those tort reforms have taken Florida. We were previously on a list that was called the legislative hellhole of tort within the state of Florida. We're now off that list. We're actually a state that has addressed tort reforms. We've seen that as a result, rates have actually come down. The increases have come down. There are 17 companies that filed for a rate reduction this year. I've talked to some folks out there that have seen their rates go down, whether it be by $300 or the most extreme I heard was $1,100 their rates went down by. Now, the other thing that we have to remember from 2020 through 2023, what was happening with property prices within the state of Florida?
Oh, they were skyrocketing.
Exactly. Every property price was absolutely skyrocketing. The building material costs are skyrocketing. Labor costs are skyrocketing. As a result, all of those things go into what? They go into the rebuild costs for that home. So as a result, with rebuild costs going up, the insurance rates are going to go up as a result of that. Your home that was, say, $200,000, in many cases now in the state of Florida, is worth $300,000 now. And as a result, you're going to see the insurance rates go up because, frankly, you have to rebuild that home as it exists in today's market, though. It's not that same home that you purchased, whether it be 5 or 10 years ago. Now, the other side of that, you see that if you're a person that's homesteaded, you're not seeing your taxes go up because you have that homestead protection, but the value of your home continues to go up. And as a result, the insurance has to stay with that. Now, we're continuing to try to work, whether it be with roofs and looking at ways that we're dealing with roof issues, the payout structure. I was just given a report that there are hundreds of people across the Treasure Coast that still have not received full restitution or full payments from the insurance companies associated with the hurricanes that we had this year. Mm-hmm. We're seeing that there are issues across the board there. So there's still things to fix and there's still things to work on. But we have seen rates go down across the board. People listening on this program are probably going to send me, hey, I still got an increase. You may, but I would challenge you that your increase is probably not a double-digit increase of what it was before. If it was, please call your insurance agent. Please call another insurance agent. Shop around right now. You don't have to stay with that company. There's a lot of companies that have come into the state of Florida now because we actually have a better opportunity for insurance companies. We've created a business environment that allows for insurance companies to actually set up shop here where they aren't afraid of going out of business. And as a result, you have options. So please get with your insurance company, find a new company if in fact you're continuing to get those astronomical raises. There's others out there that would want you and want you to be a part of it. And so I would encourage folks to do that.
It's very good advice. And on that, this year, more than ever, we've probably seen one hurricane come into Florida, and actually it went up into the southeast, into the Carolinas, Georgia, and caused tremendous damage. And I bring this up because is there any talk of regionalizing insurance carriers so that they have regional, instead of just a state-based premiums, regional-based premiums?
Unfortunately, because of the building programs that we have here, the building code we have in the state of Florida doesn't necessarily match the others in the southeast region. So we're not really comparing apples to oranges as far as building structures, building codes, whether it be coastline, all those different types of things makes Florida really unique. I mean, we have one of the greatest and longest coastlines of any state in the entire union. So as a result, it's difficult for us to compare to anybody else when we're doing that. It's a great idea. That being said, there has been talk of a statewide wind mitigation fund. So in other words, you would be able to be a part of that wind mitigation fund, and it would be separate from your homeowner's insurance, which would cover everything from liability to fire to different accidents that may happen around the home. So that is a discussion and a possibility that we have been talking about, similar to our Florida Catastrophic Fund, which goes into play when there is landfall of a major storm or a catastrophic issue that may happen in the state of Florida. So there are certainly different ways that we're looking at this. And by the way, that wind mitigation fund would be an option for people rather than a requirement for people. So if you want to keep the insurance company that you currently have under the legislation that I've seen, you would be able to do that. Now, don't do an Obama on me and say if it's you like your doctor, you keep your doctor. I haven't fully gotten there yet, so we'll figure that out.
Good news. Let's turn more to the environment now. So Senator Harrell and Representative Snyder have introduced legislation to protect the state parks. We all heard about the hotels and golf parks and different things being introduced or possibly developed in the state parks. The public just had an uproar about that. And in response, Senator Harrell introduced that legislation where it's going to give some oversight to anything that's proposed into these parks. Do you support that legislation?
So that legislation is currently going through the committee process. I would not be surprised if there are modifications to that legislation prior to that time. I won't see it until it likely hits I'll probably see it at Budget Committee. I sit in the statewide Budget Committee. I'll probably see it there. So I'll be able to comment on it more at that time. Do I support golf courses in Jonathan Dickinson? Of course not. And do I think that there are some provisions that we could do that would prevent something like this in the future? Of course. I also look at, the legislation as it's currently written as well, though. We would look at, say, a state beach, and they want to put in a new food vendor at that state beach. It would require a tremendous amount of additional effort to do that under this current bill. And that's just the bugs that you work out in a process like this. So I think, one Band-Aid doesn't fix everything, if you will, but I certainly, I laud her for putting that legislation together. We'll certainly be working on the House side to do everything we can to prevent a situation like that in the future. And by the future, I mean my lifetime. So let's make sure this is taken care of. I don't care who's representing the Treasure Coast at that point in time. This is something that is important to my grandkids that are coming, and we'll make sure that we're going to be taking care of that.
Representative Overdorf, that's certainly one thing is unintended consequences, right? And I appreciate you bringing that up about the bills. We have good intentions with a lot of bills, and then after they're passed, there's those unintended consequences we didn't think about. And honestly, opening up a restaurant at a state park, we all like to get a hot dog. You're absolutely right. So those are the things that need to be thought through, and this is the process, and appreciate you talking with us a little bit about how those bills are passed. They go through different committees, they have revisions, and we'll be watching that as it goes through. But certainly something needs to be done, and I think that's what people wanted to hear from you, and you just said yes.
Make no mistake. I want to make sure that our state parks are preserved for the future. So thank you for that. Yeah.
And then also a local constituent here, a blogger, had submitted a question. There's a court case where NPR and Spotlight are being sued by someone over astroturfing of a reporter's career because the reporter was doing a story that included yourself. It was a story about alleged gopher tortoises at the site of Cleveland Health Clinic that sits on the corner of Cantor and Indian. Somebody else has been added as a defendant, but they want to know if you are going to be called as a witness in this case, if you know anything about it.
I have not been served, have not been brought up part of this case. I'd love to be a witness in that case because this woman is a completely irresponsible, filed an incredibly false and defamating report. Put a lot of people in the spotlight with this entirely false and ludicrous report that is out there. Damaged potentially my professional career, my reputation. I would love to be called as a witness. So please send me a subpoena. Allow me to be a part of that case. Happy to do it.
There you go. And it's a case, somebody said that they thought they saw 20 turtles, but there's never been any video proof. So
there's never been any proof of this, Casey, whatsoever. And I'm a state certified gopher tortoise agent. And if that case actually happened, do you think I'd still have one after 10 years? I'd have that agent license? No. So this is certainly something that, again, is defamation. It's false. They went after my character to try to keep me out of office, to keep me away from this elected office that I currently sit in. And it is something that, again, I would welcome the opportunity to be able to be a part of it. I welcome and I'm grateful that the Wall Street Journal did an article on this and brought that forward. And this is the kind of dirty politics that's sitting out there, unfortunately, that unfortunately also doesn't go away. I mean, we see once again things hit the internet and they stay on the internet forever. And unfortunately, this is what I have to deal with.
So just to move on about just gopher tortoises, this is something that's personal. I always wonder about. So I'm going to ask you, the current regulations on gopher tortoises, are they fair to the landowners? Because right now, if you're developing, you see a gopher tortoise, it falls on that developer to pay the cost of relocation of the gopher tortoises. My question is for you, Representative Overdorf. That, to me, inspires some people that maybe don't want to pay it to maybe do a nefarious thing and just bury their burrows, what have you. Why isn't there something like maybe a fund that all developers put a small amount in, and then when a developer sees a gopher tortoise, it doesn't have to come out of that project's budget. It comes out of this fund statewide. They call FWC up or whoever it is that they need to call, and the gopher tortoise gets removed. And if you don't do that, when it's not costing you anything extra, then there should be a severe penalty. But it seems to me that the way it's set up currently, it almost encourages bad behavior from some people. You hope they do the right thing, but at the end of the day, everybody's watching their wallet.
What I would say to that is that, again, we're back to property rights, a free country, and a free way to do business. And these are the regulations that we have been given. The gopher tortoise is managed by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, and it is a state listed species. With that specific listing, if the state did not do this, it would become a federal issue. And the feds have thus far said the state of Florida is doing a very good job in managing this particularly imperiled species. And as a result, the feds have not stepped in. I would suggest that in the program that you're talking about, potentially, because there's no individual accountability associated with it, that the feds would step in. And that's something that none of us want. We don't want any more federal involvement in our lives. The other issue is that in the state of Florida, it costs a significant amount of money to move a gopher tortoise. And the cost of admission into an off-site relocation area, I think the lowest I'm seeing right now is $5,000, and the highest I'm seeing is about $10,000 per tortoise. So each single tortoise that goes in, that's the price tag. Does that promote a nefarious behavior? Absolutely it does. Have I witnessed that nefarious behavior on myself? No. And I tell you right now, if I did, I would fire that client. I would not be involved in that. And as a certified gopher tortoise agent, I would be required to report that activity as well, and would be more than happy to do so. And I say that again because if the state program is failing, and if the state program puts that species in a further imperiled position, the feds are going to step in, and again, nobody wants that whatsoever. So I think the state's doing a fairly good job. I would like to see the cost of offsite relocation come down. That comes down with competition, and if there are other banks out there, if there are other ways that we can relocate these tortoises to additional banks, then that price tag goes down for those individual tortoises. But at this point in time, we're continuing to see those costs be anywhere from, again, $5,000 to $10,000, depending on where your project is located and where those tortoises are being relocated to.
It's a staggering cost, especially if you have multiple turtles on one property. That's where, I appreciate you saying that, and it's always something I'm like, that's a lot of money if it's not expected. And, if there's just some way we can make sure that the developers have the ability to, it doesn't cost them a lot in their pocket. Everybody thinks every developer is just rich and they can just come up with any money they want. They don't. They have a budget on their project they have to keep. And
certainly, and speaking of a lot of fees, we haven't even talked about impact fees and your local government fees and things like that are on there. You're looking at some of these municipalities, at least in the Treasure Coast, where almost 30% of your building cost goes towards fees for your local municipality. That's insane. It doesn't need to be that high. And the municipalities, in my opinion, need to find a better way to deal with those costs. They need to manage their costs a little bit better. And I do realize that local governments certainly have costs that are going to be coming forward. But it's just hard for me to believe that 30% of a new home should go towards fees for that particular municipality.
Dare I say we need Doge?
Well, we're working on here in the state of Florida. We actually are looking at ways to cut costs. I head up a committee up here that's called the Joint Administration Procedures Committee. We actually are examining and looking at rules across the entire state. Are those rules appropriate? Are they being enforced appropriately? Are we getting licenses from our state agencies at an appropriate time? Are there enough or too many? Is that agency bloated with personnel? These are all things that we're actually looking at right now. Some of those findings will come out before the end of the session, and we'll be able to either A, act on them this session, and many things we will be able to, or B, we're going to be able to really act upon it next session.
Representative Overdorf, I appreciate you taking a great deal of time. You bared with me here at the beginning as we were hooking up for our first live show. We didn't talk about human trafficking at all, and I know that's one of your main platforms. So I want to open this opportunity. Is there any legislation you're working on that you would want the listeners to know about in this upcoming session?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. And yes, this has been something that my wife and I have worked on diligently for every session that I've been up here this year. As you know, I'm going to be terming out from the Florida House here, not this session, but the next session. So as a result, I'm starting to work with some partners within this that are in a lower class, in the freshman class. So I'm working with a freshman right now that we're going to be, we've introduced legislation that will require every single teacher that is certified in the state of Florida to go through human trafficking training. It's not currently one of those things that's out there, but we're going to have them do that. And so every single teacher across the state of Florida is going to be doing human trafficking training. There's another bill out there that's going to be potentially increasing the penalties on solicitation, as well as we just with the immigration bill, we also had some issues in there as far as the sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and increase of penalties on those as well associated with illegal immigration. So those are all things that we're looking at. We're always trying to raise additional awareness. We're always trying to make it easier to report suspected cases of human trafficking. One of those ways is we do raise money. We have a benefit coming up at the Breakers on May 30th. My wife is going to be very thrilled that I even mentioned that. If you want to be a part of that, it's the Florida Alliance Against Human Trafficking to be a part of that benefit. And right now we have a variety of invited guests that are coming to that, and so it'll be a great night. Last year we had Marco Rubio and our newest senator, our former Attorney General at that one, and so Ashley Moody. And as a result, I think she'll probably be back this year, but we have some other really special invited guests that are going to be coming to that. And so we've asked a particular resident of Palm Beach County to join us, but we'll see what happens.
I hope that resident of Palm Beach County does join you. That would be exciting. I appreciate those updates, and I think it's absolutely wonderful to have some sort of certification or training for the teachers because they see all the kids. And the more people that are aware, and I don't think people understand how prevalent it is here in Florida and even right here on the Treasure Coast, human trafficking itself. So,
absolutely, and I applaud Councilman Bonner from the City of Port St. Lucie. He pushed and got every single member of the City of Port St. Lucie, all their staff, to be certified in spotting the signs of human trafficking. they became the first 100% club for municipality in the state of Florida. And that has now spread. We have commitments from St. Lucie County itself, Martin County, also with the city of Fort Pierce, and then Indian River County is coming on board as well. So Lynn Barletta has been a great part of working that and through her organization. So it's really been really positive, and so I applaud him for that. I applaud Lynn for her efforts, and I think this is something that on the Treasure Coast we hope to make this problem rare and easily spotted by the members that are going to be trained.
Amen to that. Representative Overdorf, I do know you're in your last term. You do have one more session. I'm not going to ask you what's up next just yet, because I know that's coming, but I'm going to let you off the hook on this interview, because I know there's going to be a lot coming up.
Right.
You're welcome. Hope to stay in touch with you on this session. Thanks for all the good work you're doing up there. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Take care now. And for folks, bye now, Representative Overdorf. And folks, we're right here at the Fish House District and Marina in the breathtaking Manatee Pocket. It's anchored by the Pearl, the new swanky hotspot serving up fresh seafood, craft cocktails, and an unforgettable vibe. It's really awesome. I can't tell you, if you come down here into the heart of Port Salerno, how wonderful this restaurant is. Artwork in it, the atmosphere, you're right on the water, you explore the district, and to top it off, you got to check out Captain's Hook's Ice Cream. This is the best new ice cream place in Martin County. It's fantastic, right here by the Pearl. Also, you can do aerial yoga. There's something here for everybody, literally. And that is at the OM Shack. So from laid back days to lively nights, there's something for everyone. Come see what the buzz is all about. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to be on Rumble every Wednesday at noon. Appreciate you tuning in. And that was Representative Toby Overdorf. Lots of great updates for the state. Take care.
Coming to you from South Florida, the Casey Ingram Show broadcasts from the heart of the Manatee Pocket, atop the Fish House District and a marina, Port Salerno's hidden gem. Now here's Casey Ingram, Unleashed.
Stand in the shadows, Ingram calls the shots. Speaking truth to power where the rebels lost. Forces rising, anger crackles through the air. Casey's beat unleashed, raising hell without a care.